Oh, hey folks, welcome back to the Priory. My name is Dave Jackson. Welcome back to my little man cave here in Western PA. Today we're going back to 1997, the 50th anniversary of the Air Force, also the Heroes Tour, the Tops and Blue Heroes Tour. Today we're going to be talking to Keith Hershman, vocalist on that team. Full disclosure, I was with that team for about the first 3.5, 4 months, and then I went home. But we'll talk about that a little bit in the video because this is mostly about Keith and not about me. So let's get right to it. Keith Hershman, 1997, The Heroes Tour. On you. Keith, great to have you here, man. Thank you for joining me. It's been a long time, old friend.
It has been, man. It's great to be here.
When was the last was the last time you and I actually were face to face? Was that the reunion?
Yeah, face to face was probably the reunion. Yeah,
Reunion,
man.
yeah. Wow. So let's talk about the elephant in the room first, Keith.
Sure.
Do you prefer hairless Keith or haired Keith?
um, I I prefer haired Keith because it was the younger Keith. I think the biggest
So
thing.
is this by default or by necessity?
This is by necessity. It's I became very not to offend anybody, but I became very Jewish and it kept getting bigger and bigger, and
Yep,
so it just
yep,
became a necessity. So
yeah,
I do look back at times like whether it be from tour or when I've done shows that I had hair and go, man,
right.
I'd never thought I'd lose it. It looked like, but
And I was looking at some of your pictures today. I've actually, just so you know, I posted a few of the pictures off your Facebook photos because it's open source now.
sure,
Now I came across you some on the tour. Man, you had jet black hair, brother.
I did. I
What
did, man.
jet
It was
black?
it was black and thick, and
Yeah,
I would have bet money. I was never going anywhere, but man, when it started to go, it went
it
quick.
went quick, huh? Yeah, you
Yeah.
were rocking that World War II uniform on tour, man. You were rocking that thing. That was great. All right, so before we start the tour things and anything blue adjacent, just give us an update on where you're at, what's going on in life, what's happening with you. What's the
Well,
current
man.
status of Keith Hirschman?
Well, man, I've really been in the Denver metro area since I got off tour. I got stationed at Buckley like right after in '98, right after, and I've been here like ever since. I've been in the telecom industry the whole time I've been here. I've got, I'm a father of seven. When I went on tour, 2 weeks before I went on tour, seven, man. When 2 weeks before I went on tour, the oldest was born, and he just turned 28. So that tells you how long ago.
Holy crap!
Yeah, the baby that was on the bus was is now 28. And so and I'm going to actually be a grandfather for the first time in June, man. So
Congratulations, man!
yeah,
Welcome to the
that's
club. That's
that's
crazy and wonderful at the same time.
yeah. So there's and I've done I don't do as much anymore. I used to do a lot more local theater in Denver and stuff just to keep performing some, but I've done a little in the past like 2 3 years, but not near as much as I used to when I first came off tour. I was doing 4 or 5 shows a year or whatever, and that just became too much and trying to keep up with kids and work and everything else. So
I didn't know you had a bit of a thespian bug in you. I didn't
yeah, I
know
mean
that.
that's how it all got started. I did theater and like show choir. I always joke around my high school was at the time, not anymore, but at the time was a little like if you ever watch Glee, like half the guys on the half the guys in the show choir were on the football team. We'd go from
Right.
football practice to the show choir, but and then we did one like they did one full length musical a year, and so I did that in high school when I actually kind of got back into it. Um, it actually led to me even auditioning to get on tour because I got back into it in Japan when I was stationed in Misawa, just kind of by default. You keep seeing you see the armed forces the AFARTS commercials, and they were
Yeah.
advertising the
Right.
Misawa Theater Guild's auditioning in Greece,
Right.
and it's like, and so I kept seeing the commercial, and I called the number and I said, uh, is this just for kids? And they're like, no, it's for the adults in the community. and I saw it a few more times, and I can't. I sat down after work one day and I said, if I see that commercial, I'm going to audition.
Right.
Turned it on, and the first thing I saw was that commercial when the TV came on.
Oh wow.
And so that was back in the jet black full head of hair days
Right.
in like
Right.
95 or 94, end of 94. And I won't forget it because I walked into the audition room, and um, the director was looking down. There was a lady, and I was getting myself to production staff. And as I'm standing there, the director finally looks up and notices me, and the first words out of her mouth were, "Holy fuck." And I didn't understand. I was just like, I haven't done anything. It was like, and I didn't understand what it was about. And I got cast as Danny in Grease,
Right. Makes
and
total sense already.
and
Total
she
sense already.
and she told me, she says, literally 5 minutes before you were walking in, I said, I'm never going to find a Danny Zuko. And I looked up like 5 minutes later, and you were there. And I said that as a reaction because what I thought in my head was, is if this guy can't sing, God hates me. That's what the director told. And so it led to like Theater Guild stuff on bass, and then doing stuff for the bass leadership from the
Right.
Theater Guild,
Right.
which kind of led me to meeting Pearl Glasgow and um, the famous Pearl. And she had asked me like at two different rehearsals where my application was for the and everything, and I said, I've seen them. I'm not that good, not.
Well, hold that thought. So you had seen a show, you'd seen a TIB show before?
Yeah, I saw the cast of the first time I ever saw Tops and Blue was the I got to Japan in November of 93, and I think it was in December of that year. I think December I saw the cast of 93, right? You and Snakes. Snakes is out. I saw that cast, and then I believe I either saw 94 or 95. I saw one of the two, 94 and 95, but I didn't see both. And then I was going to be going to Worldwide in January 97, and I just found out. And so I saw the cast in 96
Right.
uh, when they were on Misawa in December of that year. So yeah, I had seen a couple of the shows and was just like, was just convinced that there's no way in hell, man. There's no way in hell I
But
could
you
ever
had
be
but you
a.
had the bug to try.
I did. I wouldn't have. And thank God for priors like Pearl because I wouldn't have
Yeah.
done it. You know,
Yeah,
I I
Pearl's awesome. Pearl's
I would I would not have done it. I would not have. She finally bought me the application basically and said, "You're going to fill this out in front of me," kind of a thing.
sit
And
down
that's
right now.
and
Yeah.
that was kind of how that happened, and entering the Bass Talent Show. And then, I know worldwides were different than the earlier worldwides in the
Yeah.
80s and stuff. This was all
Yeah.
videotape and those
Right.
kind of things. But
What was
yeah.
your submission? What did you do with the did you do the same thing at the base talent show? Did you put in your videotape to audition for Blue?
Yeah, I actually did a contemporary Christian rock song by Stephen Curtis Chapman called Facts Are Facts.
You did
And
that at Worldwide. That's right. I remember that now.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
that's what I did at the
Because the
Bass
band
Talent Show.
helped you out with
Yeah,
vocals.
yeah.
That's right.
Barry Best, the last time I saw him, said, "You're still the only person that the band ever did vocal participation in when they stood
Yep.
up."
That's
Yeah,
right.
that was it. That was the song. Yeah, I did that at the base level, and then I did that at Worldwide. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So Pearl finds you. She sees you. She finds you because you're doing bass plays, basically.
Right. Well, we got asked by so they were opening a new NCO club
Hmm.
on the base, and somehow the the wing commander there, his name was General Hester at the time, became a big fan of the Theater Guild
Oh.
to the tune of whenever we were doing a show, we were given a directive that we had to call his secretary, give her the dates. She would call us back, tell us what show he and his wife wanted to come to, and we would drop tickets off.
Oh,
And he
nice.
came every time.
Wow.
But what he came to us was is they were opening a new NCO club on Misawa, and the PACAF commander, and for the life of me, I can't remember that name right now, was coming up to be part of it. And he came to us, and this is an F-16 pilot wing commander comes to us and says, I want to shock this guy. I want like 7 minutes or so of patriotic music. I want you guys in sequence, blah blah, and all this kind of stuff. And so,
Wow.
but we only had like 2 to 3 weeks to put it together. And so Pearl got involved because we said, well, we don't have time to audition this and go through all that. We're just going to pick the people, 5 guys, 5 girls. We're just going to do it.
Right.
And so one of the ladies that was on the board for the theater guild, we said we need people that can learn quick. And she goes, I got a person that was on Tops and Blue twice. She works up on Security Hill with me. Her name's Pearl.
Yeah.
And so that's how I met Pearl. We bought her in for this one performance. And there was another guy that was performing with us who had auditioned the year before and didn't get in. And he was going to audition again, and he kept asking Pearl questions. And that's when she turned to me and she said, "Where's your application?" Because he was the one talking to her about it. And I kept
Right.
saying, "I'm not going to audition." Because I thought the other guy that was auditioning that didn't get in the year before was better than me. So I was like, but yeah, so that's how, yeah,
You,
Pearl got pulled into this performance. We worked together for like 2 or 3 weeks, and and she was giving me all kinds of tips. She was like, be big in your worldwide video, be big, be bold, wear something flashy, find the flashiest thing you have. If you have anything flash, you wear it,
stick out. You
make
have to
yourself
stick
stand
out.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
make yourself stand out. All those kind of things. So she was a big help, man. She was a big help because I would have never filled out an application if it wasn't for her.
Now, did that person you were just mentioning that didn't make it before but was applying, is that person ever, do we know who that person is? That person cycled through the system? Do we
No,
know?
he made worldwide that year that I did. We had 4 people from my base actually make it, which was
Uh-huh.
kind of cool. But
Yeah.
he didn't get selected for tour.
All
And
right.
as far as I know, he's never toured. I've
Never
never
took.
I've never
Okay.
heard his
All
name.
right. Let's say that'd be fun to look him up, but okay, we don't know. All right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about now you're at Worldwide. You've made it. The tape has gone in. You've been selected. Everybody at the agency seen. He said, let's bring this cat to Worldwide. Tell me about your Worldwide experience, specifically opening ceremonies and what you just give me your impression of that whole night.
Um, well, you have to look at it like I didn't think I should be there personally. So
You
I
thought
made
you were an imposter.
yeah, I made up my mind that I was just because of that. I think because of that, it enabled me to actually relax a little bit because I thought I'm just gonna go have the best time. I'll give
Mhm.
the best effort. I'll just be myself.
Yep.
And I remember though being in the opening ceremony thing and like for me also like that was in January because Worldwide was in January because we were going to staging in February because of the
Yep.
50th anniversary show, right?
Yep.
And so I had just seen 96 in December. So I'd probably seen them less than a month
Right.
before. But there was like even a different edge, man. And I just remember sitting there. I was like sitting there looking around, and I was like, holy. My first thought was, what the hell have I gotten myself into? I'm gonna
That's a
embarrass this.
that's a
I'm gonna
common
embarrass the
thought. That's a
yeah,
common
I'm gonna
thought.
embarrass the crap out of myself. But it was just, but it was also there was this sense of it was kind of like this sense of awe and like these are for lack of a better word, but these are regular Air Force people, Air Force Joes like me, and they're up there and they're doing this and they're doing it this well and like this at this level. And it's like, holy crap. It was a bit intimidating. And, then going through the whole selection process to find out when you're going to perform and all that kind of stuff and what your talent team was. I think my head was spinning that night a little bit. It was
Right.
like, if we've started like this, where the hell are we going next?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Is it going to go
But
like this or is it going to
yeah,
go like this?
yeah, it was really but I just remember being amazed like, big Yui Gaither was out there
Yeah.
on that tour and stuff like that. And I remember him like stepping out on stage and singing like Sherry
Yeah.
with in that falsetto with that
Yeah.
strong that voice and just like sitting back in my seat going, oh my God, this is just amazing. And uh but and just the way the room was set up, the attention to detail and everything, it was like I had no clue what it would take to get to that until I got to become a part of it. But the work
Right.
that went into all that had to be. But I remember being in probably I was kind of it was kind of a combination. I was like in awe of what was going on, but I think it really kind of hit me what I was trying to where I was trying to get to at that point.
Right.
I was like, wow, they're that good, and it's like I want to try to be a part of that.
Yeah.
It made me. I was like, going, man, is this? I didn't think it was possible, but now I'm really not sure it is, kind of a thing. But it was
Right.
that was an incredible night. It definitely was a night like I'll never forget feeling like that as a contestant sitting
Yeah.
there.
And it's built. It's literally built for shock and awe.
Yeah.
Opening ceremonies are built for shock and awe. I mean, as many worldwides as I've worked, and before I became Blue, the I was the '91 worldwide as a performer, and those are the days when it was in the uh, the huge, not stadiums, but the civic centers and stuff like that. Where was the '97 worldwide? Was it Washington? Was it DC?
It was Andrews.
It was Andrews, right? Yeah,
It was
yeah,
Andrews.
yeah. So the days when they had them in the convention centers, dude, those were separate stages.
Oh wow.
The text came in a month early. The building
That's
it was monstrous, monstrous. Yeah,
I can only imagine.
yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah. They're built for shock and awe. So that when the folks start walking down the aisles, you're just like,
Yeah, that was definitely it.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was pretty it was intense. It was
So
intense.
what? So once you're now ensconced in the worldwide and you're starting to do interviews and stuff like that, tell me about that experience. What was your vocal interview like?
The individual vocal instrumental
Yes,
one.
the individual vocal
Uh,
interview.
well, I don't play anything and I
Right,
don't read music.
right.
And
Well, we're
so
talking vocals now.
yeah, and we're just,
Yep,
but what I told myself and was is like and what Pearl told me they're going to ask you to sing a bunch of different styles of music, so have songs in your head, but all this
right,
kind of stuff.
right,
And I went in and I got so nervous if it's like every song that I thought of went out of my head. Do something
get
else country,
something.
it was just gone. Just do something else country or do something rock and roll, do
Right,
something bluesy or whatever. And I had things in my I was just like, I can't think of anything, um and so it was that to me was actually the most nerve-wracking audition of the whole process because I memorized vocal parts. So to go in and try to sing harmony with somebody off the cuff, it just you have to memorize. Or since I don't read music or play anything and then like I get let myself get so nervous that um I couldn't remember songs that I had told.
right.
I had the list. I was just like I felt like I should have been smart and just wrote them down. I said, "Excuse me, let me pull something out." So
Something up. Yeah. A
pull something up, but
little 2x5 card ready to go.
I wasn't I wasn't intelligent enough to do that at the time. It
Right.
was, but that was definitely the most nerve-wracking part, I think, of the whole thing.
Yeah.
I had friends that said the dance part was, or the interview, or the specialty with Khalil. That was the most fun.
Yeah.
But it was, but yeah, that one was the most difficult for me. When I walked out of that one, I thought if I had a sliver of a chance, I just like pissed it away.
Right.
Is what I felt
So
like.
you walked out completely
Defeated.
thinking there's no way.
Defeated.
No way.
Out of that one, yeah.
Out of that
Completely
one.
defeated.
Now, did your some of the team leaders made you go through all the interviews, whether it was vocal, instrumental, specialty. Did you go through them all, or did you just do vocal?
No, well, I didn't have to go through. I went through all of. I went through all of them. I didn't have to go through instrumental because I didn't play, but I went through all of them. Specialty,
Yeah.
interview. We went through everything.
Right.
We definitely went through everything. Just at the end, the individual instrumental vocal was kind of combined. So if you were there to be a vocalist and you played anything, they'd let you play. If you were there, I guess, to be an instrumentalist and you sang some, they'd let you sing. It was kind of like all
Right.
combined.
Did you do an interview with Tom?
I did.
How'd that go?
That was an interesting process because when they put you in a hot seat, outside, you're on deck, you're next or whatever.
Right.
I think the person ahead of me was in there like 45 minutes. I
Oh,
was
wow.
just sitting in that chair. And then when I went in and I mean, that to me was like that to me was there's something memorable about that only because you have to flash forward to when Chief was giving me my tour ring because I go in and I sit down. I shook everybody's hand, but I missed somebody. And I sat down. They said, "Oh, I guess they didn't want to shake your hand." So I got back up and I shook some. So I sat back down. It's like a Keystone Cop kind of a thing.
I didn't mean
But
to leave you out. Sorry.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, it was kind of like a Keystone Cop kind of thing. And I thought it was surprising. What I remember was, going through it and everything. And the last question the chief asked me
Oh,
was, "Why should I put you on tour?" And I remember looking at him and I said, "I will never be the best singer, the best dancer, the best performer you've ever had on stage. And not ever, nor would I be the best in this cast. But I said, I guarantee you that I'll give you 110% every day. No one will outwork me." And he looked at me and he said, "A lot of people have sat in that chair and said the same thing." And I said, "Yeah, but I mean it." And so that was the end of my interview. When I went out and looked at the time, I thought I'd only been in there 15 minutes. The guy ahead of me had been in 45. So either I had done really good or really,
yeah.
really bad.
Yeah.
One couldn't be, it was
That would be a tough assessment. That
yeah,
would.
it was like I was in there a third of the time, and it was like, okay, I don't know whether to take that as okay, I did well, or like they just wanted to get me the hell out of the room, kind of a
Right.
thing. Um,
Who was in there? Who was in there with him?
oh man, to try to remember, I think um now I can't. There were there were five people from that current tour, and
Oh, so it was all current tour folks. Was it
yeah,
90?
it was all people that were currently on the '96 cast,
Right.
and I can see some of their faces, but I'm having trouble remembering names, um, and everything. Like I remember in the specialty audition, like Scott Sutherland was in there.
Right.
And I remember him just because I made him laugh 3 or 4 times. And he's got a big laugh anyway because he came
Yeah.
out with us. And
Yes.
so I remember him for sure being in that one, but I don't remember exactly who all was in there, but it was definitely just five. It was like five people from the current cast.
Okay. All right. So day of the show, what was your mental state the day of your performance, getting ready for it? What was your process, and what do you remember about that night? In the green room and whatnot. Give me that whole experience.
Well, I was in I was in 3B. So I was in the last show.
Last show, yeah.
And I remember like, you're watching the A show, the B show, the first half of the C show, whatever. And I remember like going through the rehearsal that day and being really nervous and going through my song. And I think it was Derek Wright after I got done. I think it was him. Came down to the front of the stage and said, "I know you're nervous, but we have to understand the words, man. You got to spit it out. You can't be so nervous that you can't spit it out." And
That's sage
um,
advice. That's good
right.
advice.
And one of our mentors for our team was like JB Brooks,
Uh-huh.
and I just he said the same thing. He's like, "Man, I like the energy, but don't let the energy overtake what you're trying to do."
Right.
And that's some good. Um, and as the day went on, just getting more. I remember when we first got done with the rehearsal and I did the song again. They said that's what we need, or whatever, and I was like, okay, and laughing my ass off at the band because they stood up and did that in the rehearsal. They stood up and said promises and promises and facts are facts in the rehearsal, and I laughed in the middle of the song.
Right.
And they said, "Do you care if we do it?" And I said, "Nah, man, I'll take all the help I can
Well, as
get."
long as you know it's coming up, it doesn't surprise you.
Yeah, I'll take all the help I can get, is what I told them. And they said, "We want to make," and I remember Barry saying something like, we're gonna check with the judges. We're gonna check with them to make sure it doesn't disqualify you from an award. I'm like, I'm not gonna win an award anyway, man. Just do it, kind of a thing.
Right.
And I remember like getting more and more nervous and things. And uh, I think that the wild thing about the performance itself is the curtain had closed at the end of the number before me,
Mhm.
and I got set on stage, and they started shooting smoke,
Mhm.
and then the music started, and the curtain started opening, and the music started, and I had to watch the video to know what happened because I remember the smoke, the music starting, and the end of the song. What happened in the middle, I just don't
You have
even.
no recollection of
I
being
have
on
no
stage.
recollection of the actual like performance. It's wild. But I watched the video and I was like, well, I think I did the best I could, and I think that was the main thing for me is like when I that night like I didn't think I was gonna get selected, and that night when we were with the tour team and we had in our group we had uh Tega
Oh, I
was
don't think. Yeah.
Tega was auditioning, and he was kind of our because he was a prior, he was kind of our team leader kind of a
Right.
thing. And I remember him asking me, he was just like, "Hey man, how do you feel?" And I said, and I said, I feel like I did what I came here to do. And that's kind of all I can do. And I've had a great time and I've had a lot of fun and I goofed off and had a great time in the dance audition. And I mean, I just had fun. I didn't let it like worry me that it was and stuff. And I said I felt like I did what I came here to do. And he looked at me, he said, he looked at me, he said, you're going to make tour, don't you? And I'm like, did you see the other like 70 acts, man? I'm not. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Keith, you're going to make tour.
Wow.
You got something that they're going to want. And I'm like, I'll take your word for it. I thanked him for being supportive and everything, but I still never thought that I was going to end up out there.
Do you think you peaked on dress rehearsal or show night?
Show night.
Oh, nice. Good. Good for
I
you.
think I think I did better. I think I did better in the actual performance than I did in the show. Um, and I think part of that was because sometimes, and this is like even in like musicals or whatever, you're doing the dress rehearsal, you're doing the rehearsals, the staff is there, the people that are paying you are there, the theater's empty, it's just you and the band or whatever and the staff, and like you kind of, it kind of to me that at times is more intimidating than if the audience is full and the performance is just going, because then you can just kind of
I can see
let
that.
loose. You can just kind
Yeah.
of let loose and kind of just you do what I mean, I mean, if you think about, I mean, just to piggyback on it, there were way more times that I was nervous at the Bob Hope Theater when we were putting the show together, doing the number in front of the chief for the first time that we had taken
Right.
out of the music room, than I
Right.
was when we did it for 2,500, 3,000 people. It just, there's something, I think, when you get to that part where you're not thinking, you're not worried. Am I being judged? Am I doing this?
Right.
Did I wave my arms too much? Did I jump around too much? I do this. Just let go because the audience is here, kind of a thing. So
Right.
I think I had a better performance than I did a dress rehearsal at that.
So you get off stage. You're all the pressure's off now. You get to kind of you know the rest of the evening's kind of more or less yours after that. How did you feel that night? Well, I don't remember. Forgive me for not remembering. Did they do they didn't do the select the next night, or was the night after the third show? Was it the same night?
When we went, we did the shows. We had the rest of the night. They did like the banquet the next night,
Next night. Yep.
and then 96 came in and did
Yep.
some numbers. There was the
Yep.
banquet, and priors were doing speeches. I'll never forget like Gerald Mack did a
Yeah.
speech, and it was
Yeah.
freaking powerful. And but none of us knew anything. We left there not knowing.
Right.
Obviously we knew like the male vocalist, Roger and Wilco winner, the overall winner, like
You
Kim was
guys were
the
doing the tabulations to figure out who was who you thought might be the winner for each category.
Right, uh and like yeah, the male, and like and so they did all of those, and you're looking and going, well, I don't know how many people they're going to select for tour, but probably most of them are going,
Right.
because they won and stuff. And so I remember being the thing I was thinking about that I was enjoying the banquet. I was sitting with the team, and like uh I got to talk to, Slim for a while and and that was the funny thing back when 96 Slim was out with 96
Mhm.
as part of the staff, and he's good friends with Pearl. So when I volunteered the day that the Tops of Blue came in, and like, so there were a couple of funny things that happened when 96 was there. The first one was Yui tapped me on the shoulder. And I turned around and I'm kind of short. And Yui's really not. And I'm
Yeah.
looking into the chest of this man, like looking up at him. And he looks down at me and he's like, with his distinctive voice, is like, I hear you want my position. And I'm just like,
That was so Huey.
I'm just like, man, I don't want, He's like, come backstage with me. And he was back like doing, but then Slim came up to me, tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, you're Keith Hershman. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, you won the adult vocal category here on Miss South. You're coming to Worldwide. You're married and your wife's about to have a baby. And I'm like, I think my exact words were, who the hell are you? And he goes, man, you're in the Tops and Blue Network now. You don't have any secrets, kind of a thing.
Right.
And but he was talking to me he was talking to me at the banquet at Worldwide. Um and so he was like, I mean, I never he just put his hand on my shoulder. He said, man, I'm proud of you. You had a good week. And I didn't, and I was like,
Praise.
and I was like, thanks, man, I appreciate it. And I said, I said I learned a lot to try to come back and actually do this again.
Mhm.
And he just kind of looked at me and smiled. And he just kind of looked at me and smiled and tapped me on the shoulder and said, okay. And he walked away.
Right.
And so, um, but the whole experience was,
Well, you're sitting there at the table at
Mhm.
closing ceremonies. They're doing, Blue's done doing the numbers. You've already had your salad and your fish. Dinner's done. Everybody's doing the whole who's gonna do what, who's gonna win what, who's gonna get selected, blah 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 blah. What was it like at your table that you were sitting at, waiting for all the big announcements for Roger and Wilco and team? What do you
um,
remember about that?
it was, I think it was remarkably relaxed. I don't, and I think, um, that, you know, it was kind of, it was kind of wild. I know that they do it as a purpose. You're kind of with these folks like all week, going
Yeah, yeah,
from,
yep.
but it was, everybody was like really, really supportive. And, um, it's kind of thing, oh, you're going to make it, or you're going to make it, or whatever. But everybody was really like supportive. And, we thought at the table, I mean, we thought that Tego was going to win something.
Mhm.
And I think he got a Wilco that year, I believe. Um, I think. I think he did play. He was either the Roger or the Wilco winner that year. I'm pretty sure. Um, but the move was just really, I think. I don't know if anybody else was like really like nervous about whether, hey, am I gonna go back to my base and find out I got selected? I still was convinced I was gonna go back to my base, and it was just not, you know. I at that night, one of the things I was excited about in the back of my mind is so Worldwide's in DC and I was in Japan.
Mhm.
They flew me to DC. My mom was in West Virginia,
Oh
four
wow.
hours, 3.5 hours away. So I was taking a week's leave to go home and see my mom, to
Mhm.
drive down to West Virginia to see my mom. So I rented a car, drove down, saw my mom, drove back, and then flew out a week later. Um, so I was just enjoying the performances and just kind of the camaraderie. It was a lot of fun, and um, congratulating the people that won. I know like Mike Fanning won the 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 male category, and I think David Keith was the Wilco winner or something, and Kim that was out with us, she was not only the overall winner, she was the female winner. Um, and just talking to some of those folks after when everybody got to mill around and things, it
So,
was just it was a lot of fun.
so refresh my memory. You guys didn't get, you guys got notified about tour after you went home. You guys got
Uh-huh.
selected. You had to go through your wing commanders and whatnot. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
I
yeah. And
thought
that was
that was the first year that happened like that. I'll have to look. I'll have to look into it.
I don't know.
Because
I know it was.
back in the day, it was everything happened the same night.
Oh,
Back in
they told everybody right there.
the same night. You got the Rogers and the Wilcos, and then
Whoever was on, whoever made tour.
he'd call up the people one at a time on stage. And
It was kind of wild the way I found out too, because I went home for a week and they had told us that we would find out. I believe it was the 31st of January.
Mhm.
So I went home for a week and I came back, and so um, there was still like a week left, basically. I think before we were supposed to be notified, and I was on a mobile comm team in Japan, and we had to give a presentation to some visiting bigwigs, and we were having to do a practice briefing.
Right.
And I was tech control like circuit actions. And I was on so I had part of the briefing of this thing, and so when it came my turn, the group commander, her name was Colonel Rosa, I started to give my go into my spiel about my job, and she goes, "No, wait. When do we find out?" And I said, "Ma'am, find out what?" And she said, "When do we find out that you made it?" And I said, "Ma'am," I said, I love your confidence and everything, but
I
and as I'm
appreciate
saying
your
this,
comment.
I said, I love your confidence. I said, they'll say that we'll know by the 31st. So, and about that time, my squadron commander comes running out of the offices of the hangar, waving a piece of paper saying he made it, he made it, he made it. And so
What?
that's how I found out in front of my whole mobile comm team with like the group commander there and my commander. That's how I found out I made tour.
Wow.
Yeah, it
And
was
then
pretty.
you did what?
Well, then I got a lot of, and then about 15 minutes after all of that, and we got done with the briefing, I had to go meet Allison at the doctor for an appointment because she was going to have a baby in February. And I walked into the appointment and she looked at my face and she said, "What is?" She goes, "Oh my God, you made it." And I didn't even say anything to her. I said, "Yeah, I just found out." And and so, but that was a whole thing of, of discussions because yeah, like Cade, who's now 28, was born 2 weeks before I left for staging because we started staging in February.
Yeah.
And she came back to live in Nebraska, and then that's how she ended up following the bus. And then she and Cade were at 40 some of the 150 shows or whatever. And it was
Yeah.
just like, it kind of set all the wheels in motion for that. But my my leadership was really, really cool. Um, because like while I was at Worldwide, I found out I won Airman of the Year for the group. And so I had won Airman of the Year for the squadron before I left. I won Airman of the Year for the group. And um, so when Cade was born, there was 2 weeks left till staging. And um, the leadership got together and gave and dreamed up creative ways to give me 2 weeks off without taking any leave.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. We're going to give you a 3-day pass for being Airman of the Year for the squadron, and we're going to give you a
Three-day
3-day
pass.
pass for being Airman of the Year for the group. And you represented the base so well at the world for making
More
but
3 days.
it was kind of all these creative ways to like make sure I could spend that 2 weeks with
Well, that's pretty cool.
oh, it was awesome, man. My base,
Yeah.
Misawa was so supportive.
Yeah.
And there were two of us that made it from there because Nicole that went out on tour with us was from Misawa as well.
Yeah.
And two of the four of us made it. So it was really
Oh, Masala had a pretty good showing.
yeah, we did. We did. We sent four and placed two, so we had a 50% rate of at least of the people that went from there. And so yeah, it was but the whole experience was just crazy. And then,
One of
talking oh
the
sorry.
no,
No.
you're good. You're good. What I was gonna say was that worldwide, um, one of the things that took me back about that worldwide was, I don't know if you remember, but you gave me a hug. Now, you probably don't remember that. I'll tell you why. Because a third of the way through worldwide that year, my brother passed away. I had to go home. And the team, Tom announced that. So Dave's got to go home. His brother passed away, blah, blah. But the entire worldwide, everybody that was competing that year got in line to give me a hug before I left the door. It was remarkable to me. And
That's amazing.
I told Tom, I said, that's how I got involved with the 97 year. I said, if I can help with this team, let me help with this team, which is how I ended up helping with the team. But that was an exceptional worldwide.
I mean, I don't know what other ones were like. Well, at the time I didn't know what other ones were like. I went back and worked one after that on staff, but yeah, there, uh, I didn't know what it was like, but it's just that the whole experience. I mean, even if I wouldn't have I mean, the experience was enough that even if I wouldn't have got selected, I would have tried like hell for the
Oh, that was
next.
my next question. Would you have tried again?
Yeah, I would have tried like hell. Yeah, it was because when I saw like, I think one of the beauties of Worldwide is you get to see kind of a glimpse of the family aspect of it.
Correct.
It's not just about performing. You get to see how the current, you get a more, the current team comes into your base, they set up, they do the show, they tear down, you volunteer, they say, get out of my way because I can do it faster. And I understand that once I got on tour, don't slow me up. I want to go to bed, you know, those kind of things. But you just see that you could see how people cared about each other. It was more than just about the show. Yeah, and that to me was, I think you could see that just from being a contestant at Worldwide, and that to me would have drawn me back to audition um, again, or at least attempt to. I'd have sent another videotape or whatever. I'd have been in Pearl's ear, Masao going, "I need help. I got to get better."
Yeah.
Whatever it is,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would have definitely come back and audition.
So now you've been selected. You got to go to Texas. So tell me about your staging. Tell me about how you approach staging, how you got through it. Just give me your impressions of staging.
Oh man. Well, the first thing that was, I think that was really, the first thing I remember about staging, and actually about um, one of those days when before I left for staging, and I was on my pseudo vacation in Japan. I was in the
Mhm.
shower, and Heather comes in and she says, um, "Slim Jones is on the phone for me from Air Force Entertainment. I told him you were in the shower. He said get you out." So I was like, so. Um, Kate
That's
had been
great.
born. And I go to get on the phone and it's Slim and he said, hey, the chief wants to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. So the chief in what I call the true chief fashion, he gets on the phone and says, Keith, he says, congratulations on the birth of your first baby. Now down
Oh,
to business.
nice.
And then it was, um, I selected you primarily on stage presence and showmanship. We both know you have a lot to work on vocally when you get here. And I'm like, yes, sir. He goes, there's no solos for you in this show. I said, is that going to be a problem? Is it going to hurt your ego? I'm like, no, sir, it's not. And I remember getting to staging, and it was one of the first questions I was asked again, only that time by Slim. They pulled me in a little room on the side, and they said, there's, some people's ego can't take that. I said, look, I'm surprised I'm even here. You're not going
Yeah.
to give me, that's not, that's not. And, but I remember walking into the production center the first time and
Mhm.
seeing the commitment to excellence and all that kind of stuff on the wall,
Yeah.
and getting that intense, like intimidated feeling, like I was walking into Worldwide,
Yeah. Same kind
and
of vibe. Same kind of vibe. Yeah.
yeah, it was really um the staging was staging was wild. I mean, I and I just put it in my mind, I think, I remembered when I got there what I had said to the chief.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna let anybody outwork me.
Mhm.
And I just went about it that way. And I was a pain in the ass because not in like I wasn't giving an effort, but we were learning vocal parts off of cassette tapes and I have to memorize them. And so, I mean, I remember Sabrina, she's like, let's do it again for the tenors.
Right,
And I was the tenor screwing it up. Lavelle wasn't screwing it up. It was
right,
me.
right.
And so, um, I remember like, like some of the folks on tour they didn't, they looked forward to the vocal rehearsals at the end of the day. I looked forward to the dance rehearsals because I wasn't going to get yelled at as much as in the
Oh,
vocal.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that.
So, um, and so that was, the thing I kept telling and I remember sometimes I remember I'd never had feet that sore after like the first week. I was like, what in the heck is going on? And um, and then as the hours kept getting longer, and longer, or you'd have those days where, hey, we're gonna clean up and go home at like 9:30, but we're gonna be back here at 2 a.m. Those kind of things,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, y- y- but I think it really like, it really. I think he had to have it because you have no idea what you're going to get into on the road.
Yeah.
You have no idea what those first 2, 3 months, your hours are going to be like, and how little sleep you're going to get, and how hard you're going to work. You can't fathom it. If you've never done it, you can't fathom it.
'Cause I have told many people over the decades, my year with the '93 team was the hardest thing I've ever done in the Air Force.
Well,
Past
and
Desert Storm, past all that stuff, that was the hardest. That was the most physically demanding, mentally challenging thing I've ever done in my life.
well, I told people this. I told people the same thing, and I was on a mobile comm team in Japan. We were humping our equipment and all that kind of stuff too. And I was like, I have never physically worked that hard for a year straight
Mm-hmm.
in my life until that. The people that
Tough
thought, oh,
comparison.
it's a vacation. No, I mean, I remember like those first few times, like well, that's jumping ahead to being out on the road, but like, I just remember like Mike Fanning was my roommate at staging,
Oh wow.
and we were both. It was funny. We both liked to eat at night when we got home, so we would go to the BX and buy food, or go to the commissary and buy food. So we had sandwiches and stuff like that, and split the cost. The one thing, and this was a true record, or I don't say it's a record. This was a true thing for our room. We were both married,
Mm-hmm.
and we get home and go to sleep, and the phone would ring. And if I got up and answered it, it was his wife. And if he got up and answered it, it was mine. Not one time did one of us answer the phone while we were in staging, and it was our own wife. If we,
What are the
it was the
odds?
wildest thing. What are the odds that that could happen like every time? But not one
Yeah,
time while we were roommates in staging did we pick up the phone and it
yeah.
was our own wife. It was the wildest thing. But
That
not
that was an interesting staging. Well, for me too, is because Tom typically the folks that the tour director position stays with the vocals in the band in the production center because typically that's. But Tom had me over in the tech center building the set, so I only saw you guys morning roll call, who needs to go to sick call, blah blah blah.
right.
Every day, okay, who's sick? Who needs to go to sick call?
Yeah.
How's everybody
Who
doing? Is
pulled
everybody
something?
okay?
Yeah.
Here's your
Yeah.
checks. What's going on? Is everybody okay? That type of thing. It was an I did not this isn't far removed from the truth here. I did not know any of the songs that were in the show until pretty much everything got moved to the Bob Hope
Oh wow.
because I was at the tech center the whole time. So I would just pop in once in a while. I'd hear you do pieces of stuff, or I'd hear some stuff going on, but I remember chunks of songs just coming out of the production center. But I really didn't know. I mean, Tom had me get the stuff for the flats, the heroes, the generals, all the history stuff for the flats made and stuff like that. But when I first saw the show, when we first started doing rehearsals at the Bob Hope, I was so flabbergasted at how freaking awesome the music selections were for that show and the way that was set up. I mean, it was complicated, it was tough, it was a hard set, but that was a really, really, really good show. Really good show.
It was a lot of fun to do every night. You know, it was and you know and and getting to, you know, and by the time that we got to there, just getting to go out there with that group of people, you know,
Mhm.
getting to go out there with that group of, you know, kind of going to battle with the same folks every night, you know,
Yep.
it was so cool. And getting to do the different, yeah, getting to do like
I mean,
um
you sang Three Dog Night, right? You sang Jeremiah, right?
yeah.
I don't recall, in some prior, let me know, comment on this YouTube video here, folks. I don't recall any other cast doing Three Dog
Joy
Night.
World, yeah. I don't know. I it was fun. Like we did that whole set that we had, that 60 set that we opened with Sergeant Pepper's, and then they had
That
the
was
Buddy
amazing.
and
Absolutely
then the Three
amazing.
Dog Night and stuff. Yeah. And
Carpenters?
these, yeah, you know, that was fun. And then you know what was wild was when we had the country set that was all guys. And we were, as the male vocalists, amazed by that because there was a point in staging where they sent the band and the ladies home and they
Oh,
kept the male vocalists and they said, at this point, you guys are you're the weakest part of the show, the male vocalists.
oh,
And they kept us there and worked us and um then when we got then when they put the country set together and it was just kind of us, it was pretty wild that because it was like, okay, well we must have got our act together kind of a thing or whatever. But yeah, I mean, the funny one would always be, at least for me, it was when we were doing, um, when we were doing like the 70s set, you know, or, you know, Mike Fanning comes out with the big disco and he's doing slide and stuff. And, you know, uh, Aaron is doing, Aaron is doing Little Richard and, you know, some of the, it's like everybody came out as characters people knew.
mhm.
And then and then um I came out and nobody had a freaking clue who I was supposed to be. Because I was what was the name of the I was Fearless?
It wasn't a, uh, uh,
Good Lovin'.
good loving. Thank you.
Yeah. And no, but nobody knew who I was supposed to be because then
Right,
I came out after Lavelle came out and everybody
right,
knew who he was. He was
right.
James Brown.
Yeah.
And I did mine, and then he came back out or whatever. We were out, but yeah, it was, you know, I I think probably leaving staging though was it started. I was probably more proud of myself than I probably had ever been because I didn't think like I thought there's no way I'm going to survive this, and then um and I did, and then. I'll never forget the first time Slim called me into that little side office in the production center off the dance floor. And he goes, I need you to listen to this song. And it was the Air Force Mr. Jones things that we did. You know, he said, we're
Mhm.
changing the lyrics to Air Force Mr. Jones. And, and he's playing it for me. And I'm the only one in the room. Now, I was told I was not going to be doing any solo
Right,
work. And
right.
I'm the only one in the room. And so I'm looking around. I remember looking at him, he goes, what do you think? And I looked at him and I said, why are you playing this for me? He goes, because you're going to sing it, dummy. And I'm just like, what? And then so that's how he says, you're the one performing it. I was like, okay. And uh, but yeah, that whole I think that whole staging experience started like me realizing that there was a level that you can push yourself to
Mhm.
mentally. And I'm not and you know, not only performance wise, but um mentally that you didn't know was there. Like I never um and I remember getting shook up at the beginning. So we started out with 8 male vocalists, 2 basses, 2 baritones, 2 tenor 2s, 2 tenor 1s. And I'd always sang baritone. My entire life, I was told I was a baritone.
Mhm.
And we get there, we get there, and they're like, something's not right. And so they said everybody put all you guys put in the couple. We'd only had like a couple of tapes that we were
Right.
on, and they and Barry was there, Barry Best.
Mhm.
Took us in a room and had us matching pitches on the piano. And they get us back in the room. They come in, and I would love to saw the look on my face because again, I sang baritone my entire life. I'd love to see the look on my face. They said the two tenor ones are Lavelle Boswell and Keith Hershman. I'm like, that's like two parts up.
What?
They're
That's
like,
crazy.
and Barry, and I said, what? This is a mistake, Barry. And Barry looked at me and said, somebody's been lying to you. You're 10 or 1, just nobody's ever told you or something.
Wow.
And so that was like adjusting to like, trying to do these high like, rock fills and falsetto that I'd never done before. And like driving Lavelle crazy because he could do them really easy and stuff and trying to like listen to how he was doing it. Hey, can you sing that again?
Yeah.
Whatever and stuff. But yeah, it was definitely a stretching experience in a lot of ways, vocally because I'd never sang tenor one before. And
Right.
then with all the dancing and and all the other stuff, it was I didn't know that I could go that long at times without sleep or um that I could that that I could just push myself that far.
Right.
And in my mind it was I don't want to let these other people down.
Hmm.
I don't want to let the staff down that's taking a chance on me. I don't want to let my teammates down. I got to keep going. I got to keep going. Um and stuff. So that I guess yeah.
Well, when I remember this night vividly, going to our first away show,
Mhm.
Kentucky,
Yeah,
right?
we played the fly.
We loaded everything on a C5,
Yep. The bus and everything, man.
whole kit and caboodle. We were the first year with a generator, first year with a
Yep.
generator. So we had the van, the generator. Now, if you remember right, we had two trucks and not one. Do you remember why?
We had that rider truck, right? We had
Well,
that.
we had originally we had the full tractor trailer, the Thompson Blue trailer,
Mhm.
and I had asked Tom. I said, "Why can't this is early in the stages of stage?" I said, I don't see any reason why we can't get that tractor trailer, the bus, everything we need on a C5, on one C5. And he was explaining to me that he was told we couldn't do it because of the I don't remember if it was the angle of the ramp or it wouldn't fit, whatever. And I said, Tom, I've seen submarines, rocket parts, stuff going on C5, stuff that you would can't even imagine. I said, I would love to talk to some load masters and see if and so that's how we managed to make that happen, going over to Kelly and working with the load masters. But what happened is we did the mock fit of an unloaded tractor trailer, the bus, the generator, the van on the C5. Took videos of it, gave it to Tom. Said, "Here you go, Chief." He said, "Okay, I'll make calls. You do whatever Tom had to do to make it happen," and it was going to happen. So we loaded up the truck, and me and Dane, I forget who else, took it to Kelly, and their C5's knelt, dunnage is out, the ramp's out. They're getting the truck backed up, and the back end of the truck of the doors is about that far from being totally up the ramp. And I remember the loadmaster going, he gets his calculator out. He's looking, he comes out, he goes, did you guys do anything to that trailer? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, we had it refurb, painted, touched up, lubed or whatever. The tractor trailer, even with a full load on it, the new tractor trailer, the refurb tractor trailer was too high. It wouldn't fit in the C5.
Oh man, I
So
didn't
I was shitting,
know.
dude. I had to come back and tell Tom that the tractor wasn't going to make it in there. So the only other option is to find something else to put the equipment in. And so we had to move everything on that tractor trailer into two smaller tractor trailers.
That's wild. I know when we were on the road a lot. I know when we actually were on the road, like when we were going from base to base, that we had a rider truck or one of the or some sort of rental truck and the tractor trailer.
I don't remember the rental truck. Was that
That
after
may
I left or before?
I may have been after you left. I don't remember. I just know that like for because we would have to because it would end up being we'd have to have we'd end up having like somebody from the cast driving it and somebody else shotgunning that one while the bus is going and the tractor
We had
trailer.
you had the van too, right? You guys had the van. We had the van as well. Did we have a
Yeah, I
van,
think
a tech van? We had a white
I think the
van.
tech van was out there too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember the rider. Maybe that happened after. I don't remember it. Maybe not.
Yeah, it could have
Um,
happened after. It could have happened after for sure. But
yeah.
yeah, that was that, that was I never forget like it was a Mike Wilkinson when we were loading everything out the first time and he's in there helping us build the load and write everything down as a load
Yep.
master stuff
Yep.
and everything and just how I remember loading it. I remember the first time we loaded it as a cast or whatever and how long it took and thinking we are never ever going to be able to do this quickly.
Yep.
To, fast forward in 2 months down the road where, you've
Boom, boom,
got
boom, boom, boom,
you've
boom.
got Gibby and Andy and I were just flying, Gibby's in the truck or Andy and I, and then it was John De Tomaso when he was out there or when he left the Tega came out flying off the truck. I remember like looking at the guys with the light board. I need that next. It better have a lid on it and run to get something else and going and then coming back and they'd have it lidded up. But just yeah, again, it's just incredible how it evolves and
What would you say is your top three memory shows, if you can, of that tour? Clearly, I would think. Now, I'm not saying you have to say this one, but I would think Rock and Roll Hall of Fame had to be one of them.
yeah, that was really really cool. I remember it being I remember it being tough to hear that day out there. That's one of the things I remember about that show. But yeah, that was cool. Um, I think in general when we performed for Bob Hope when he was the Congress that gave him veteran status and we
Mhm.
performed for him,
Yeah,
getting to perform for him, going back to my base in Misawa. Um,
always. That has to be on the top three. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that was fantastic. Getting to go back there and like most of the leadership was still there and everything and getting to like I think for me, so um I remember and this is kind of this is flat. So after I made tour, but before I left for staging,
Mhm.
General Hester, who'd been such a supporter, was getting reassigned to Florida. And so this is a one-star general getting reassigned to Florida or whatever, and they're doing a going away party for him. And like I remember or thing, and I remember his wife had requested that I do a song there or something like that. And so
Wow.
I remember standing in line, and it's weird how different things motivate people, but like to get food. And unbeknownst to like the people that were having this conversation, I'm like two people behind them. And they're talking and they said, and I heard my name, and one of them said, that guy will never make it through that tour. And I remember that stuck with me. I didn't
Wow.
say anything.
Right.
I remember like I remember like getting into the hangar to set up and go. I couldn't have told you who he was, but I'm just like, I hope that SOB is here tonight. I didn't know
Right,
kind
right,
of thing
right.
because I'm still
So
out here.
you.
I'm still out here. I haven't gotten sent home yet, kind of a thing.
So for the folks that never saw the tour,
Mhm.
explain to them what the premise of that show was about and what the different things the stages could do, the back flats, the barco, yeah,
Oh yeah, it
the
was.
barco,
Yeah, it was that big projector. Oh
yeah,
man.
yeah. So
Um,
give us like a breakdown of that show.
so the whole theme of the show was heroes, and the chief had integrated all this really cool video with the barcode into to where we were doing a 40 set, like a 60 set, a country set, a 70 set, and then the patriotic set is kind of how it all stacked in. And we had all those flats on the back that got changed out, and sometimes. So there's a video screen that came down if they wanted to shoot video on that at the beginning of the show before we did all of the rifle routine and all that kind of stuff coming in. And then that went up, and then all the flats spun, and they'd spin the center flats to white while the other ones had these great like murals of whatever set we were in. The four, you know, whether it be famous, whether famous military folks or famous performers, all
Yeah.
integrated into these flats and everything to kind of decorate it. And then the video where it was like, you know, um, that would get shot in the middle, sometimes while we were changing clothes, some between the sets every time, sometimes in the middle of the set.
Mhm.
Um, and it was technically it was like really like when I sat back and watched the videotape one time, I think I was so impressed with like, you know, the flat spinning, the stage pushing forward, the stage pulling back with the band or whatever, the flats changing. And now we're in the 60s set, and all the flats have changed when they spun around, and that and like having to take care of those. I think
Well,
that I
remember
think
how
the,
much we had to paint the white flats? We had
yeah.
to wear gloves
Yeah.
and paint them a lot.
The most irritating thing I thought about our set was the white dance floor because we had
Correct.
to get out there with Comet before
And the
every
white
show.
carpet.
And yeah, we had to get out there with Comet and like clean the dance, clean the scuff marks off the dance floor or whatever. And then I think I went to see the 98's cast, they had black dance floor. I was like, son of a, but
Yeah, because the risers had white carpet, the dance floor was white.
oh,
We had
yeah.
white flats that we couldn't get our finger. We had to wear gloves to handle them, so we didn't get fingerprints all over them.
Yeah, it was
It was an
wild.
intense set. It was an intense set.
Yeah, and some of those some of that video
Yeah,
in between it, the way it was integrated and the way it was like, you know, everything from going into the country set to Rhinestone Cowboy, like riding, you right and stuff.
yeah.
It was really, really wild. And it being the 50th anniversary of the Air Force, show, um, the last I heard, we still were on the longest tour ever. As
I still
far
think that's probably true. That's got to be true.
and
How many
and
shows?
and
How many shows was it?
I think it was 130 some.
Yeah, because typical tour is like 120 ish.
Yeah, I think because we did a bunch of extra like Air Force balls. It was somewhere between like 130 and 150. It was somewhere in that range. Because we would have some bases we would go to, we would have to set up and do like an Air Force ball show, and then we would have to tear down and then move and set up and do a regular show. Rather than just do one big show, it'd be two shows for the same base.
Wow.
One's for the Air Force ball at that base, and one's just for, for whatever. But I was telling you about General Hester.
Yeah.
So one of the coolest moments for me, and it's not because there was anything spectacular about the show. He went to, I believe it was Eglin, but I'm not 100% sure. And I may not have the base names right, but so we get there to do a show, and it's one of those times where you don't get to your billeting room till like 4 in the morning.
Right.
And there was a
This is early in the tour then.
oh, this is early in the tour. This
Yeah.
is like May,
Because
probably April,
I
May.
left at Patrick Air Force Base. That's when I was gone.
Yeah, this was like April, May. I mean, this was
Yeah.
like right at the beginning of the tour. And there was a card on my pillow, and I opened it up, and it was a handwritten card from the general saying he was going to be in Santa. He was sorry he was going to miss the show.
Uh-huh.
He was going to be in San Antonio for a board that he had to sit on. He said, "Enjoy the Ivory Coast." I remember that, and he put
That's
his
pretty sweet.
he put his business card in there and said, "If I ever need anything, to let him know." And I put it in my bag. I still have it downstairs. But what I mean was the coolest thing is like we did the show there, and I think went up into Georgia, maybe did a show or something, came back down into Florida. And wherever we were, I remember it sticking to me that it was a weeknight. So we're on a weeknight, we're doing another show in Florida. We're 2 hours away from his base. We go out at the end of the show to greet people, and this woman taps me on the shoulder. I turn around, she says, "Surprise, it's his wife." They had driven down 2 hours on a work night because they
What?
missed the show. Yeah, I mean this was the guy who was our wing commander in Misawa, but he had driven 2 hours from his base because he missed the show there to see me.
That's
Now
pretty
that
cool.
that that's one of the most memorable things ever is that he thought enough of me to do that as just a
Right.
local senior airman, that had worked for that had performed for him in Misawa that you know and everything that he came down that he and his wife drove out of their way in the middle of the week to come to make sure that they saw the show. It was really really cool. That's one of my most that show's memorable to me just because of that,
Right.
not because of anything spectacular that happened in the show. I mean, there were funny things that happened in the show. Like we were in
Like all shows have. Yeah.
yeah, like we were in. You remember how we had that song? We had that song in the 40 set called "Drumming Man,"
Oh yeah.
right? With the drum solo, right?
Yeah.
So we are in uh Kansas somewhere because I know, and we're in this big hall and we're performing, and you couldn't have like scripted it any better. No, the guys are all rocking, doing their thing. The girls are up doing their dance, and they do the whole "Swing it, Mr. D," boom, and Taker goes digga 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 digga, and the drum thing collapsed. And all he's got is like the little kick thing on the bottom and one like little thing. And he just starts going. He just starts like playing that. And the guys without I don't know why we thought it was just instinct. We hopped off where we were sitting. We danced over and we held the drum set up
Oh, great.
so he could do
Is
his
there
drum
video of
solo.
that? Somebody's got video of that.
I assume there has to be a video of it somewhere because
That would
Chief
be
taped all the
awesome.
shows, but we held the thing up and he did his drum solo and that was the end of that was the end of the 40 set and we were
The
going to change.
riser collapsed
No, the
or his kit?
his kit.
Oh,
He didn't have his kit all the way together, right? So it just went poof, it collapsed in the middle of his drum right when he started his drum solo. So he had like just the kick
that's
and we just like
hysterical.
people just danced over,
But
held
he's
it up, he did
professional.
the
He
drum
kept going.
solo, we finished it, and then he put it back together while we were changing clothes and everything. But it was stuff like that. Just my my very first Snakes giving me a hard time in my very first show. I remember with the Bob Hope Theater. It's the first one we're doing for the troops, and we had a song that didn't stay in the show. It was in the 40 set. It was called "Let's Face the Music and Dance," and Charmaine sang it,
Okay.
and it didn't. But it ended up getting cut from the show for some. I don't know whether Charmaine didn't like it or what. I can't remember, but most of it was just her. She was doing all the vocals. There really wasn't any backup, and everybody else was just dancing.
Yeah.
And we had those teardrops on the side, right?
Yep.
And so new dance floor, new dance shoes. I got to hop off the teardrop and get to the other side of Christy Cruising because she was my dance partner in that song.
Mhm.
So I just circled around her in the front of her. And I will never forget because I know exactly what I was thinking. I hopped off that thing. We were in it by that point. The nervousness and we're off excitement. That was also the show where I was so nervous backstage. I'll never forget this. And I told him about it at the reunion. Slim Jones put his arm around me and he said, "Nobody believes in you more than I do right now." And
Oh
I'll never
wow.
forget that. Um,
Wow.
but
Good for
and
Slim.
I say it to my kids. I say two things to my kids before they go on stage. 'Cause I have a son that's a performer,
Oh.
or my older son, or my kids, or my daughters when they dance, or my kids that were athletes. My
Uh-huh.
dad used to say one thing to my dad never understood the singing and dancing thing, but he always used to tell me before I did it, before I played the sport or whatever, he used to tell me relax and kick ass. And so before my kids go on stage or go to do anything, I tell them nobody believes in you more than me. Relax and kick ass. I kind of combined the two. That's
I
kind of
combined the two. That's great. I love that.
um, but I hopped off that teardrop and I started high stepping around Christy and I thought, man, I look good. And I slipped and I kicked the frontline monitor into the pit.
Oh,
I
I
don't know if
remember
you remember
that.
this.
No, I remember
You
that.
remember that?
I do remember that.
I kicked the frontline monitor
That's
into the pit,
right.
got up, went through the dance, and of all people, Yui is in the crowd.
Uh-huh.
He's the one that comes strutting down and he's looking at me and I can see him and he's picking it up and he's making a production with his face about putting it back up on stage. And we go back to change for the 60 set and Snakes is just on me. You're
Yeah.
going home. You made it through staging, but now you're going home. The Chief's going to kill you. I and I, I'll never forget. I just busted my ass right in the first show, right in the first show, and then the only thing that she said after the show, I remember, like I thought I'd made it through the whole like post show like talk. He didn't mention it. I was kind of sitting there with my head down,
Yeah.
and he's getting ready to send us to the to go eat or whatever. He goes, "Oh, and Hirsch, do you think you can make it through the tour without breaking all my goddamn equipment? I'm never making it down or something." But that was all he said. I was like so ready for like a big ass chewing that it was, but that was all he said. But yeah,
Wow.
those were, I mean, some of them. I think the other, I mean, I guess it's more about, I think the other thing I'll never forget about the last show that we did, um, the very last show in the Bob Hope Theater, the very last show tour. One thing I've always said to people or anybody I talk to from tour, I said, I would give anything to go through the last teardown, load the truck one more time because I was a load master,
Mhm.
drive to the Bob Hope Theater, set up, and do the show one more time with that group of people. That was
Oh
just,
wow.
you
Yeah.
know, I just to do those every section of it one more time kind of thing. Um, when they announced that we got MSMs for being on tour, and nobody knew it was happening,
That's remarkable.
and just I would have loved to see had a close up of the look on our faces if you could have seen it because it was just like we went through this thing where hey, you're going to step up here, these people are going to give you this, but they didn't tell us who it was. It's just thought, hey, thank you for being here, whatever. And then when they announced that they were giving us meritorious service medals, it was like, I mean, you could have scraped me off the floor almost, kind of a
Yeah.
thing. But
Well, you guys deserve that medal. You guys deserve that medal.
it was I remember days getting on like I remember those days where you'd have like 4 show days in a row at the like compressed bases in Florida, and you've done like 4 20-hour days in a row or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember one day, and of all people to say it to me, it was Christy Cruisen because she sat right beside me on the bus, and um, I got up and tried to approach every. And Christy asked me one time, why you work really hard, and I said, I'm working hard in the setups and the teardowns and all that kind of stuff because I want to give the chief a reason to keep me around. I don't want to, I want to give the, I want to be an asset somewhere and or whatever. And so, I remember getting on it like after one of those days and like putting the ramps up on the truck to give me and like walking on the bus and sitting down, just pouring, sweat,
Mhm.
3 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was. And thinking if I have to lift my arms above my head one more time, they're going to fall off. It's just I was just being just I was like I didn't I think I remember saying something to Chris. I said I don't think I've ever felt so fatigued in my life. And knowing that the next day was a travel day and thanking God that the next day was a travel day.
Oh, travel days are worth their weight in gold.
Except when after lunch you see the chief coming with the videotape
Oh
from the
yeah.
Suburban onto the because
Yes. Yes.
the rest of the ride it's asked
Right.
you in time. It's just
Right. Right.
but
So
yeah.
how did you decompress after tour? What was your post-tour traumatic syndrome like?
Um I remember like it wasn't like awful, I don't think. I remember like getting off I got off tour and one of the wild things I had nothing left in Japan but one set of BDUs and my Kim gear in a locker in the mobile comm hangar. That was it. Everything else was gone. And they sent me back there for 2 weeks to out process. So I kind of had 2 weeks where I was just in Japan. I was in Japan, like in a dorm by myself.
Yeah.
I could see my friends that I'd had over there or whatever. I was catching up with old people. But I remember first getting to Denver and saying, I don't care if I ever sing another song or dance another step for a while. And that lasted maybe 2 months. And I was like, I got to find something to do. And it was, but I think it just kind of, I think one of the things that set in motion for me is like, I still find myself really busy and
Mhm.
liking to stay busy and liking to stay moving. And I
Right.
don't know that that would necessarily be as much of the case if it wasn't for that. And things,
Well, it changes your whole mindset about everyday life after that. It changes everything.
Right. Exactly. I've said this to somebody when I was talking about talked about being part of the family and talked about being tops and blue. People that don't understand just like um one of the best ways I think I've ever thought about it or described it, and this is just for me, is like, like everybody else, life isn't always smooth. And you have different things. Um, you have different challenges. I don't know if you've picked up on it. I'm sober 6 years and 8 months today.
Oh, congratulations, man.
And so it's I've had some struggles and I've had, the one thing I've always said, what they said, what's so I said one of the greatest things I feel like is, Tops and Blue never kept me from getting knocked down, but it sure the hell taught me how to stand back up.
Oh, I love that.
And
I love that.
and it taught me how to get off the mat because, you know, um, I could hear the Chief's voice. Like there have been times in my life I haven't wanted to go on. And that's just being like 1,000% honest as a recovering alcoholic. There have been times in my life I wanted to give up. Um, and you know, it has been it has been knowing what it has been knowing I'm part of this family that has gotten me off the mat more than once. And you know,
Hallelujah. Amen.
I thanked the chief, even at the reunion. I said, thank you for letting me be a part of this because, you know, you've seen me, bro. I'm not the greatest singer or dancer. I have a lot. I perform. I'll sell a song and make you smile or whatever, but I'm not the greatest vocalist. I don't pretend to be or whatever. But, um, I, this the whole like, you know, you know, I used to tell kids when I used to coach youth football, and I used to tell kids. And I kind of got this from the program. I used to say, if you get so tired you can't do it for yourself, look to your right and look to your left and do it for the person beside you. And I remember that's kind of the people what I remember that was kind of the mentality on tour is like I'm not going to let my brothers and sisters down
Mhm.
um because I'm tired. Because I
Right.
know they're tired too. So it's but yeah, I learned so much about myself um about what my capacity was for work and to push myself and teamwork and and loyalty and all this kind of I learned so much of that I learned so much of that from being on tour
Yeah.
and
Well,
um
it's a different type of trenches, right? I mean, if you were a combat soldier in the trenches and you had the same platoon every day and you're out on the wire every day, you'd have the same family feeling.
right.
It's the same thing, just add music to it.
Right, yeah.
Same thing.
No, that's completely it and
Yeah.
that's completely it and it was I mean and you know it's like and I didn't realize how much the chief doesn't forget
Hmm.
what he says, when he says it, whatever, what you say to him. Um, yeah, because I'll never forget when we were at our final tour at the final tour banquet and we were getting all of our wares and he gave me my ring and he gave me a hug and he said, you promised me 110%. And he said, I swear to God, you gave me more.
Oh, that's high praise, man.
It
High
stick with
praise.
me. That comment will stick with me for life. It has for 28 years,
Yeah.
since we got off tour, or we got off, I got off 27 years ago, we got off tour, 28 years ago, we went on. But
Think about that. 27 years ago.
yeah,
That's
20,
insane.
well, and it's just wild. Like when Cade on the 9th of February turned 28, and I was like, and there's sometimes it slips my mind a little bit that his age is how many years ago I tour
Yeah,
is when
yeah,
my tour
yeah.
started,
Yeah, they match.
and
They coincide. Yes. Good
and so
parallel.
and so yeah, so it's just it's amazing, and it was almost it's almost like this thing where uh I when my daughter Kaylee is 22, she's making me a grandpa for the first time, and
Mhm.
um when she told me, and my first initial thought in my head was, is I'm not old enough to be a grandpa, but obviously that's not necessarily true. Um, because yeah, I mean, because by the time I was, because I was a dad at 25, that's when I went on tour. I was 25. And so, but yeah, I, I'm forever like grateful for all the experiences, everything from worldwide to every, even every missed meal and every time I was tired and all that. I learned something every day about myself, even when I didn't realize it was happening. In the moment you can be just tired or whatever like that, but you're like, okay, how did you wake up the next day and go, well, shit, I can do that.
Yeah.
I remember like having a little bit of a fear of heights and being a rear tower trust crew chief, and you have to run the chain motor, right?
Yep.
So I was
Yep.
making somebody else do it until Mike Wilkinson realized I was making somebody else do it. He goes, I'm going to get you over your fear of that height. And he would make me climb it. And
Wow.
I mean, it's like shaking,
Shaking?
making sure the chain's straight for the first few times and everything. But just like, no, but it's moments like that where you go, okay, after a few times, okay, I can overcome this.
Yeah.
You can overcome the fear. And um and and like I said, like just like knowing that, like I say, I don't want to make it sound like hyperbole but I was I go to AA between Alcoholics Anonymous
Mhm.
and my higher power and the fact that I'm a prior. Those three things have saved my life.
I love it. I love it,
It's
man.
and that's not hyperbole. That's
No,
just
I'm, I completely understand. I completely understand. I completely get it. What do you think? Well, let me do this. What do you think that tour, and just real briefly, what do you think that tour brought compared to other tours? You think it was on the same parallels as other tours? Do you think that show was at a different level? I mean, if you were to ask any prior, their show is always at a different level. Whatever year it's
yeah.
always about, it's always a different level. But I will contend, and it's just not because I helped work with that show and we're with you guys for a while, but that show was really something special. And not maybe because it was an anniversary tour, maybe because of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't know, but that show had a different vibe to it to me.
I think there is maybe a comment. You know I haven't seen I never saw every Thompson Blue tour every year, and I think the thing with that tour was I think when you it was a combination of everything. I think you're on the 50th anniversary of the Air Force tour.
Mhm,
There's all the nostalgia, there's all of the history that's built into the show,
mhm.
and then the music. I think the thing about that show that was so special was the culmination of like all of it. Like
Right.
it was like when you put it all together, if we wouldn't have, when you put the videos in with the flats and the costumes and the song selection and the way the band
Well,
played.
well, hold that thought. Tell the folks about the opening sequence, the very first opening sequence of the show. The
Oh,
helmet with the
oh yeah, that was
tell the folks
that was
about
that
that.
was and yeah, that was after and that was after we did the rifle routine.
Yes, we did the rifle. We had the
We did the
color
rifle
guard.
routine, the national anthem went
Yep,
off. People came
yep. I
back
was
home
part of the
with the
color
whole
guard for a while.
it was
Yep,
supposed the whole thing, that whole opening thing was supposed to be a computer, the
correct,
TIB-2000,
correct.
right? Or whatever. And it was supposed to be a computer, and it was like going to go through the history of the Air Force from its current state up, and it was like
Right.
the aliens and all that kind of stuff, and the
Yes.
I'll get like Mike Fanning in that sequin like onesie kind of a thing. I used to make fun of him about that,
That helmet didn't fit anybody. I mean, it was like you had to balance it on your head. It was crazy.
but all
Do
that, yeah.
you know that? Do you know that you probably do know this? The original concept, if I remember right, I'm sure Tom or somebody could jump in on this. The original concept was it was supposed to be a laptop that opened up to a desktop. So the whole truss was going to be lowered, and it was going to go up. It was going to be the front of it was going to look like a front of a laptop, like this laptop here, front of a
Uh-huh.
laptop, and it was going to open up and become a desktop computer. So
I
the
did
whole
not.
truss, the whole opening show was going to be the opening truss with the screen going up with it.
Oh, wow.
So one of the things we were doing at the tech center, Mike and I, we were trying to figure out how to make micro switches work. So the trusses went up by themselves. They hit micro switches and stop at the appropriate point, and then the flats go on somehow magically on the back. Yeah, so that got canned, and it became what it was. But yeah, there was
Wow.
a lot of intense trying to figure out how to make all that stuff work. It was pretty crazy. It was a
No,
lot of fun
that's
at the tech center. A lot of craziness. A lot of craziness.
that's
All right.
wild, man.
So before we go, you got any questions for me, man? You got anything you want to lay on to me? Got any questions for me? We were semi-tour buddies for a while, so
Yeah, we all understood why you had to go. We wish you'd have been out there with us, man. We had, I I'll never forget when we lined up into flights. One time we used to live right at everything was right at the beginning of the tour. We had
I know
everybody
I know
there.
what you're gonna say.
I'll never forget this. And you looked at everybody and said, "Let's try to get everybody. If we all make it to the final banquet, I'll sport wood for a year." I'll never forget that.
The most One of the most inappropriate things to ever say to any group of people ever,
But it,
ever.
you know, but it was
Tom could have easily said, "You're going home that day, Dave." He could
fun.
have easily said it that day.
But that was, yeah, that was no, they you know, I know you're gonna ask the question to a lot of people on the podcast, what does this family mean to you?
Yeah,
What's the thing that you've gotten the most out of being a prior?
but I cannot, and I try to talk to your general civilian about this, but I cannot convey to the average person who's not seen one of these shows or understand what we went through, what it's like to be with 30 plus people, living together, eating together, crapping together, going through the mud, the whole nine
Dressing
yards
alike
together.
everywhere you go.
Not having roadies, none of that stuff. We all do everything.
Uh-huh.
And I can't explain to people how my family, my wife, my kids is adjacent to Thompson Blue. It's almost it's almost my wife would make cookies for Blue when they came through. I mean, it became such a part of my family. And people don't understand that. Again, it goes back to being in the trenches.
Right.
It becomes part of your soul, part of your heart, part of your heartbeat, part of your blood, and you still want to keep track of these folks. I
Yeah.
mean, my first tour was 33 years ago, and I still keep track of these folks. I mean, for the most part, but it's who else do you do that with?
Yeah. I
There's nobody else you do. I mean, even your high school pals, you don't do that with. To that extent that we do with priors to our blue family. And the times that I had to go at Worldwide, I had to go up in front of the folks and talk to the contestants after Tom introduced me for whatever I was doing that year at Worldwide. I'd always tell them there's not a prior here I wouldn't give a kidney to. Whatever that prior needs, Dave Jackson will be there for him. Whether it's a heart valve, a kidney, plasma, $50, $1,000, whatever they're going to need, Dave Jackson will be there for it because that's how we are. That's how that's how much this program means to us and these people around us mean to all of us individually.
absolutely, yeah.
It's beyond sports. You can't compare it to a sports team because it just doesn't last that long. But something that lasts as long as a tour of that intensity, of that magnitude, put something in your heart and soul and mind that you're not going to find a substitute for that, Keith. You're just not going to find it.
I agree with you. That's an amazing way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, you got anything more for me? Anything else?
No, man, it's been great to catch up with you. I
No, it's been
appreciate you
awesome.
having me on, man.
No, I go through the list. I'm thinking, you know what? I need to talk to Keith. I want to talk to Keith. So,
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank
I
you.
love you, man. I appreciate your time. The best to your family. Best to your. I got 4 grandkids. My oldest is graduating high school this year.
Wow.
I got a 17, a 15, a 5, and a 3.
Wow.
They're the great grandkids of the greatest
Well,
dad in the world.
my kids are 28 to 9.
28 to 9. Wow.
That's
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's the aim. So yeah, we're gonna add the baby. So, nah, man, I love you too, brother. Anything you ever need, man, I'm always here.
Back at you, man. Okay, Keith Hershman, folks. I'll see you on the socials, man. I'll see you on the medias.
Absolutely, I'll be there.
Take
I'll
care,
talk to
man.
you
Thank
soon.
you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Yep.